Alright, so let's look at one last example for absolute value equations. And this one is much harder than the other ones we looked at, so let's get right into it. Same thing as before, take what's inside the absolute value bars, get rid of the bars, and just copy the question. So we have x squared minus 4x minus 5 is equal to 7. And for the next part, you have to negate one side. So we have x squared minus 4x minus 5 is equal to negative 7. So we're essentially stuck with our two quadratic equations, and let's see how we can solve this. I'm going to subtract 7 on both sides. This cancels out. I'm going to add 7 on both sides. This cancels out. And we have x squared minus 4x minus, well, 7, negative 5 minus 7. That's just going to be negative 12 is equal to 0. And we have x squared minus 4x, and we have negative 5 plus 7, that's just equal to positive 2 is equal to 0. Well, if you look at this one, x squared minus 4x minus 12, this is factorable. This simply factors out into x plus 2 multiplied by x minus 6, and that's equal to 0. Therefore, when you set both terms equal to 0, x plus 2 is equal to 0, and x minus 6 is equal to 0. We get x equals to negative 2 here, and we get x equals to plus 6 here. Alright, so that's our answers. These are our answers for the left-hand side. Let's solve the right-hand side. Well, if you look at the right-hand side, this is not really factorable. So we can use completing the square, or we can use the quadratic formula. And I'll do videos on completing the square and using the quadratic formula later on in more depth. But for this example, we're just going to simply use quadratic formula and just get it over with. So x is equal to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac. All of this divided by 2a. And just as a quick recap, the general form of a quadratic equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where the a term is attached to the x variable, so the x squared variable. Therefore, a is equal to 1 because there's nothing there, so there's an invisible 1 as a coefficient. The b term is attached to the x variable, and there's a negative 4 there, so b is negative 4. And the c is the constant, therefore c is just simply equal to 2. So plug in all the numbers, we get negative 4 plus or minus square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times c, which is 2, divided by 2 times 1. And when you simplify all of this, you're going to get 4 plus or minus square root of all of this stuff on the inside just gives us 8 divided by 2. And when you reduce this and simplify even further, you're going to get 4 plus or minus 2 radical 2 divided by 2. And divide everything by 2, you're going to end up with 2 plus or minus radical 2. So what does this mean? It means that we have two solutions, one 2 plus radical 2, and the other one is 2 minus radical 2. And unlike before, there are no x variables on the outside of the absolute value bars, therefore you don't have to check your answers. So your solutions are simply negative 2, 6, plus 2 radical 2, and 2 plus radical 2 and 2 minus radical 2.